Hey there, this is Kairos Charsky, your friendly local DAR specialist, and you are listening to The Radar. If you're a new listener, welcome. This is a podcast that will be focusing on disaster preparedness, response, and recovery topics. Today, we are going to be talking about how to prepare yourself and your home for a disaster, including what you should pack in an emergency kit. I am very excited about our guest for this episode since he is basically a pro when it comes to podcasts. With me today is one of our South Area DAR specialists, Stephen Burnett. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name's Stephen Burnett. I'm the DAR specialist for Austin, Colorado, Fort Bend, Wharton, and Matagorda counties. My office is in Belleville, Texas, and I've been with AgriLife for 2.5 years. I've been with A&M System for a total of 8 years. I have a background in emergency management of 35 years, and I'm a retired military. Damage control chief in the United States Navy. I retired in 07. I love this job. I work with a lot of great people in the DAR unit. We all have our own individual talents, but in specialties, but we all work great together, and I'm happy to be a part of this unit.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on here and talking to me today. So, I know you have a wealth of knowledge just by doing a few different events with you, sitting and talking with you about your past employment. I know you've done so much in terms of preparedness and planning. So, for the average Texan, if someone were looking to start the process of building their own emergency plan for their household, where would you tell them to start?
Uh, just sit down and start making a list of things of if you want to stay, what you want to get accomplished, where you're going to, who you're going to contact to say, hey, we're staying. Um, at FEMA.gov, they have different ways of setting up a plan. Um, I can put out, if somebody sends me an email, I can give them more information about that. I can help them personally, through email or on the phone. If they email me, I can give them my phone number and I can help them do that. But it's fairly easy. You need to have a plan, two plans, all in the same. It could all be in the same folder or whatever, but one where you're going to stay and one where you're going to go. And like I said, throughout the information is who are you going to contact if you're leaving, and who are you going to contact if you're staying? Because people want to know, are you okay? And how to get a hold of you. Cell phone service is going to go away during a major hurricane or, storm or something like that. So as soon as you can, you probably need to notify those folks that you're okay.
Hmm. And so you mentioned going to FEMA, their website, for kind of kickstarting this plan. I know that I usually just tell people to go to ready.gov because they have a plethora of stuff, or Red Cross, just because I think a lot of people know Red Cross. Um, and I feel like ready.gov is just a little easier to
It is.
navigate.
It
Yeah.
is. They have disaster preparedness things on there. They have family checklist. Those are great. That's a great place to start. But you can go to FEMA.gov, and there's a mobile app for FEMA, and it has active alerts, safety tips. You could post pictures on there after the disaster. So that's another place that you can use. Red Cross, they have some stuff. You just go to redcross.org /prepared. They have different things that you can use. But those are some of the resources that we have. Ready.gov. I use Ready.gov a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
same here.
so, um, but the National Weather Service, you can get, flood safety, one page, information from them. Those are different things. You got animal control, websites that you can go to for your animals and, things like that. So there's just a lot of different websites you can go to and get that information.
Yeah,
So,
and the best part of these websites and these resources is they're all free.
yes.
So don't worry about running into a paywall. They're all fully accessible to the public. Um, Now, another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was when people think of, an emergency plan, whether it's for their household or for a business or whatever, I think some people think of, you know, it's they think it's a daunting task because we're telling them, "Hey, you need to have something written down, or you need to have, like, a little folder that has all this information in there." And I think some people might have this misconception that they are full on writing this really detailed document, and they have to have, plan A, B, C, D if this happens or that happens, and really, at the end of the day, I'm like, if you just have a checklist and then
Exactly.
you got important documents that you don't wanna lose, you're good to go.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't have to be a detailed thing. It's just, make up a checklist and stick it to the refrigerator. And, things that where are your important documents? Or do you have something that you can store them in to make them waterproof just in case? Um, you know, you can take stuff that you have in your house and put it in a plastic container that you can get at Dollar General, and put that stuff in there, but make sure that you change it out ever so often because, canned goods have expiration dates. Um, Water, they say it doesn't go bad, but sometimes it tastes funny after you let it sit in the garage in the heat for a year.
Mhm.
Um, Change it out, after 3 months or so. Go in there and use that stuff and just replace it. It's stuff that you normally have in your house is where you need to start. Don't go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff to put in these kits. Look and see what you have in your home. Those websites will tell you different things that you could put in a kit for food and things that that you can use. So, like I said, those are good websites to go to get more information.
Yeah, and I think with food, also, you can go, again, just wherever you go grocery shopping, pick up a few extra cans of food
Sure.
or get some shelf stable items. You don't have to go to Walmart and get the 50 or $100 camping food kit
Nope.
that lasts, however many years. You don't have to go and find some MREs off a sketchy website. Um, you can just find some stuff. Even I think the Dollar Tree, might sell some things. I haven't been there in a while, but,
Yeah, they do.
um, yeah, so just your local grocery store, find some stuff on sale, get some coupons. I know that my parents stock up on things every time they're there. They get a few extra boxes of this or a few extra cans of that, just in case. So,
Well, I
it's
do
just
too,
nice to have
and
on hand.
I've got a couple boxes of MREs, and they're not bad. I mean, I've had them. The newer ones are actually pretty good. I've gone. I've even had to eat sea rats when I was in the Navy, and you don't want to eat them things. The old MREs, uh, these new ones are nothing compared to those things. These are actually pretty good. I had one a couple months ago that was somebody offered it to me. It was a newer one, and it was tacos, and
Mhm.
I couldn't believe how good it was. Uh, but I mean, you don't have to get that stuff. I mean, if you are that type of person that you want to get MREs, go ahead and buy them. It's not going to hurt you. I mean, it's food and it's very good food. Um, like I said, make sure you got water, at least a gallon a day per person. And I keep 3 gallons a day for myself because I drink a lot of water. So, but I have things to store fresh water in because we have those gallon jugs that we use around the house for distilled water for the coffee pot and things. And we'll keep those. We'll just fill them up with fresh water and throw them in the freezer. And you got ice, and when it's thawed out, you got water. So,
Now, if they didn't really want to go out and stock up on water for whatever reason, I know that Dr. Dozier loves to use the bathtub as an example. So if you
yep.
just fill up the bathtub, you got water. Or in a pinch, the water that's kind of sitting not in your toilet bowl. Please do not drink the water in your toilet bowl, but the stuff that's in the little reservoir in the back. You could technically also use that. But if you're going to use either of those, you definitely want to make sure that you are using something to purify that water.
Well,
I know
that's
the
what bleach.
simplest one is, yeah, so bleach.
And they also, if you want to, you can go to Academy or Bass Pro Shop or something like that. Even at Walmart, they have those drinking straws that you can get that has filters on them that you can drink right out of a river.
Hmm.
Even though, when we were kids, we used to drink the water in the river, but They have these that will filter that water, and it's fresh water. They have tablets that you can put in there. I mean, it depends on how far you want to go. And just the basic stuff, like I said, go to that EPA.gov, and it has that emergency disinfection of drinking water form on there. And it shows you how much water or how much bleach to put in the water, how many drops that you need to put in there to sterilize that water so you can drink it. If you can, if you can, boil it. I mean, so if you've got like me, I've got barbecue pits outside that are gas and charcoal, so I can boil water if I need to.
Yeah, I think I would probably be over the top and do both.
Yeah,
Boil it and then also sanitize it. I luckily have one of those, like, high capacity Life Straw water pitchers,
yeah.
just because I don't love the taste of my water from my apartment, and it also has a whole bunch of just, like, stuff, like minerals in there, makes it a pain to clean my sink.
We have a filter system on our in our house because we're on city water and it's nasty. But
Mhm,
I mean, I love well water, but if you have a storm, you got to have power to run that well.
mhm,
So that's where the generator comes in handy.
mhm. And then the pump for your well could also break because that was an issue that one of the residents here actually faced during the floods, is, like, their pump to actually get the water out of the well wasn't working anymore. So
Yeah.
they technically had water, they just couldn't move the water.
Well, sometimes the old farmers they had hand pumps that they could just move that old pump out the way and put a hand pump on it, or turn a valve and it had the hand pump sitting attached to the well also that you could just divert a valve and now it's hand pump and it's half a dozen another. So
So we kinda covered water, we kinda covered food. I know we mentioned boiling the water, but in terms of food, I know a lot of it you don't necessarily have to cook. I mean, you can eat a lot of things just out of a can, or you can, if it's, you know, something like cereal or granola bars, obviously you just eat that right out of the box.
yeah.
But if you're looking to reheat or warm up food and you don't have power, I know that there is something I learned about, which is using like a terracotta pot in a pinch to use it as like a little makeshift stovetop. Um, are there any other things that you'd recommend? I know, like, you could always get a camping grill,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
just
you
get
can get
like
a
either
camping grill.
propane, butane, something like that. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd say is like best practice that you've used, maybe, or if you're just someone who would just eat right out of the package.
Well, I've eaten right out the package before, but I've set up a little thing in the backyard because I didn't have a barbecue pit. But I took a rack out of the refrigerator, an old refrigerator I had. I just pulled the rack out of it before I threw it away, and I set up um, cinder blocks in the backyard and started a little fire and set that rack over the top. And I could cook, I could boil water, whatever I needed to do was right there.
Mhm,
So, I mean, of course, you have to have wood, which, every place I've lived, I've always had extra wood laying around, for grilling and stuff like that. But it's a good way if you don't have anything, just if you got some cinder blocks or something like that, just keep them handy, lay them on their side, start your little fire inside, and put that grill over top. You can cook on it, and you can also boil water, things like that. You can, cook your canned beans or corn or whatever you want. So that's another thing. They also make those little grills that fit on top of a propane bottle, like your camping bottles that are
mhm,
probably, I think they're like, I don't know, 6 inches in diameter, stand about 6, 8 inches tall. You can screw a little cooker on top of that and set a pot on it or a little small skillet. You can do that. There's all kinds of things that you can find on the internet or at Academy, Bass Pro Shops, Walmart, Kmart, things like that. I don't even know if there's any Kmarts around anymore, but Target, things like that. They have all that kind of stuff. It's in the camping supply kit section, but you don't have to go out and buy stuff like that. I mean, you probably have stuff around your house. Like I said, the center blocks and some kind of grate put over it. You could cook that way.
mhm. Yeah, I have one of those little rinky-dink cooking stoves, like little camping stoves. I also have like dehydrated camping meals, so in a pinch you just add water and you wait 30 minutes and you're good to go. Um, I will say that I did forget to get the appropriate size propane to attach to that cooking stove. And that was when I was out in the field once, way back when, and I was still able to eat like 80% of my food, but I had packed like pasta and some other things that those just weren't getting cooked, unfortunately. So if you are going to get something, make sure that you have the correct size to attach it to whatever stove you may purchase.
Let me show you something else that a friend of mine showed me one time that she got that helped supply things. And I'm on a CPAP machine, so this comes in handy. And a friend of mine suggested this little generator. So I went and bought one. And it's electric. You can buy the kit that has the solar panels on it to keep it charged. I haven't bought those yet, but that's my next purchase. And just want to say thanks, Kara, for hooking me up with that. So, but yeah, those little portable generators are a good thing to have. Especially people that have CPAPs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, any kind of cooking. Um, the one I got lasts about 8 hours on a full charge. Different, for whatever you want. I can charge my cell phone, use my CPAP, and my computer if I need to.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I have 2 little one's really tiny. I think some people on the team have seen it maybe, when I go to programs because I use it to charge my laptop since the battery runs out within, like, 30 minutes. Um, but I have another one that's at home. I purchased it way back when. Um, Even though, I'm pretty far inland, I'm in Austin, the likelihood of me being affected by a major hurricane, pretty low. However, I know that, power grid can go down, things happen. So I got a little solar powered one. It fits perfectly in my little like window bench seat that I have. And I just love having the peace of mind knowing that I don't technically have to plug in to charge it. All I need is like a little bit of sun.
yep.
Folds up really nice and compact. At least like the panels for it fold up nice and compact. And all I need it for really is maybe a fan or a heated blanket, laptop. I do have a little electric cooktop. Um, so if I wanted to cook something, I could, but for me, I wouldn't be too worried about that because I have so much stuff in my pantry. It would take a while for me to run out of food. Um, but that's
Well,
definitely something that I have, and I highly recommend getting a generator, that fits your lifestyle and what you need. I know that I recommended my parents get one when they briefly lived in Georgia, and they said, "Oh, we're far enough inland, it's not gonna matter." And then Hurricane Helene came,
oh
and
yeah,
guess what they needed? They needed a generator because they did not have power for about 2 weeks.
yep. I know what you mean.
So please consider getting a generator if you have the space for it. It's just nice to have in case things happen.
And make sure you understand how to operate that and where to put it um, away from your home when you're running it. You don't want all those fumes coming inside the house. And please do not put it in your garage while you're running it. So, because
Definitely.
you don't want the carbon monoxide getting in there and somebody has to rescue you because you've passed out. So,
So, I know we talked about things that we would want to do as people to prepare. I know I have 2 cats, so I always have to think, what am I going to do with them in a disaster? It's going to be different, of course, with small domestic versus large or any kind of exotic. But what are some of your best practices or kind of things that you want to keep in mind when you think about preparedness for animals?
food, water, meds, your vet records if you have them. Every time I take my little dog to the vet, I always keep a copy and I put it in a folder for him. And that way, if it was just rabies shots, any vaccinations he's had, anything like that, I keep it in a folder. And my wife knows where that folder's at. I know where it's at. We can take it and we throw it in our bag and take it with us. But we have everything set up for his food and water and things and his meds and all that. And also, my wife has 5 cats. You need a kennel. If you're going to take animals, cats or dogs with you, if the cats, they need litter box, they need their food and water and meds if they have them. Your dog, a leash. If you want a leash for your cat too, make sure you got that. We have a harness and a leash for my dog. So, and he stays right there with us, but you need all that stuff, somewhere that where it's at so you can grab it and put it on your checklist. Anything that you want to take with you or you're going to keep, just make sure it's on that checklist and you've checked it off. Okay, I know where this is at. It's in the garage, or I've got it set in the closet right now. Make sure you know where it's at, um, and take them with you if you're going. I mean, ours, they go everywhere with us. My dog, the cats, they hang out. You know how cats are.
Mhm.
So,
For my cats, I've got a now, to be fair, I bought this when we moved to Texas because I knew that they were not gonna be happy in their teeny tiny little carrier, driving from Tennessee to Texas. So I have a huge thing for the car that fits their litter box and both of them with plenty of room. But I also have 2 carriers just for them personally. I did actually, funnily enough, get harnesses and leashes for both of them, primarily because I did fly with one of my cats once, and they had me take her out of the carrier, and I was so terrified that she was going to disappear in the airport and I would never see her again. So we've been working on harness training so that in the event I need to remove them for whatever reason, I can clip them and then I have peace of mind that they are not gonna disappear on me, just because 'cause they're super skittish.
well, I even have a life jacket for my dog. So,
Mm,
and it has a little thing goes under his neck that keeps his head up out of the water. So he's rotten.
mhm. Now, going to exotics, since we're kind of in the small animal category, I know that one thing for at least most reptiles fish, it's more filters, but for reptiles specifically, they need, heating lamps, and things like that so that they stay at the right temperature, they're comfortable.
That's where those small generators, that's where those come in handy.
Mhm,
Solar power panels that you can keep those generators charged and things, those small ones that we have.
mhm,
Um, my kids growing up, they had snakes. They had those little small boa. I don't even remember what they were, some kind of boa constrictor.
mhm,
Uh, told them if they got out of the house that they were going to have to leave too, or I'd burn the house down. I don't like snakes, but they kept them in their bedrooms, and they did have to have those heat lamps and things like that. Uh, my guy's grandson has some kind of lizard now that's probably 6, 8 inches long. He has to have a heat lamp. Those animals, they've got to have certain things too. They got to have food and water. Um, like you said, those heat lamps, you got to have a way to keep them going. When you're traveling, that's a different story. Some of your cars have plugs on them that you can plug in a regular plug outlet into it. My truck does. So, I mean, if we were traveling, if we had those type of animals, we just plug into the dashboard and it would keep that lamp going until we got to where we're headed. You got to put those in your plan too and to put it on your checklist. What are we going to do about, our snake or our tarantula or turtle or whatever we're going to have? What are we going to do with it? Gerbils. My youngest granddaughter's got hamsters. So she doesn't have to have lamps for them, but they still have to have feed and water. So,
mhm. I was definitely a hamster kid. I mean, we had cats growing up, and we ended up getting dogs later, but I was a hamster kid. But I think we ended up having, like, a little carrier
yeah,
just in case.
yeah,
I mean, in a pinch, I guess you could put them in their little exercise ball, but typically you want a carrier.
yeah. When the kids are my 3 girls were growing up, and we were in South Carolina, they had them some little gerbils, and we had a small, probably 12 by 12 cage. that if we needed to leave, we'd just, it had hay in it and water bowl and food bowl, or actually it had a little water holder on the side of the cage that they could just take how much water they wanted off that little nipple that was there with a ball on it. And, we just put them in there and take off. But for our cats, the dog and the cats right now, we've got large cages or kennels, whatever that you can put in the back of the car in the back seat, and they're fine. Now Snoopy, my dog, he just sits in the front seat with me and my wife because he thinks he's king of the hill. So, but yeah, we put the cats in there because you're traveling with the cat and it jumps up on the back of the truck seat and tries to crawl on top of your head. Then you're trying to fight a cat while you're driving. It's not comfortable. So we
Mhm.
keep ours in a kennel.
Yeah, I feel like mine would somehow go underneath my feet where the gas pedal is, and I don't want that kind of stress in my life, so
No.
wherever we're going, they're 100% sitting restricted somewhere.
Yeah, Snoopy just lays down in your lap and goes to sleep. So, and it's not in my lap when I'm driving. He's sitting in my wife's lap. So we're
Well, then
good
that's
with that.
perfect.
Yeah, you got to have those animals, corralled or whatever, because you definitely don't want them under your feet when you're driving.
Definitely not. Now, when we think about large animals, I know it's a little different because some people might have 1 or 2 horses and they already have a trailer, so they can load them up and they're good to go. They just have to find a place to put them wherever they go to, whether that's a friend's property, a family's property, if there might be a large animal shelter open in their area. But then you have people who have a whole herd of animals, and they might not have the capacity to carry everyone out. What is the best practice for those individuals?
People that have large herds, they already have a plan for that. And it's usually they'll get them to higher ground and leave them. People that have, 1 or 2 horses like me, I have 1 horse, just throw it in a trailer and take us with us. And, but if you're going to need to leave them somewhere, contact the county fairgrounds, and that's usually where they're housing large animals is at the county fairgrounds, or even at the auction barns. They'll turn that into a temporary shelter until the water goes down or things like that. So just check with those folks. Your county ag agent, they have that information. So I have some of the information from my counties that I can distribute out if I need to, where they can take those large animals. But most of your large ranchers that have, say 100 to 1,000 head of cattle or, 100 horses or whatever, they have contingency plans for that where they'll take them to higher ground or they have another pasture somewhere that's further inland that they can take them and they have the capabilities to do that because they have the trailers and the manpower to do it. But when I lived in Angleton, Texas, during Harvey, um, neighbor down the street, his whole pasture flooded, but he had a large mound out in his pasture. It was probably the size of a football field, and his cows were able to get up out of the water because it was probably 10 foot high and the water was 4 foot deep. But they were able to get up there, and he had already stacked a bunch of hay out there. And I looked out there one day with binoculars with him, and there were deer, there were hogs, all kinds of wild animals were on top of that hill too, and they were safe because he had put that big mound out there for them.
Mhm.
So
And it's a little different because I know we're focused on, I guess, flooding in this scenario, but if there were a wildfire, I know that a lot of people just cut fence and then they're either gonna go through that fence or
yeah, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. I was at the Victoria County Farm and Ranch Show, and I asked him. I said, "Sir," I said, "what do you do during a fire or flood? Something like that for your animals?" Because he has a large ranch. He has about 4,000 head of cattle, and he said, "I just cut fences." He said, "I can repair a fence better, quicker and easier than I can letting my animals burn to death." And he said, "I got 5,000 acres," and he said, "I just cut fences."
Mhm.
And I said, okay, well, what about your neighbors? He said, they do the same thing. He said, all our animals are tagged, are branded. So when they mingle together, he said, we can get them back. He said, but it's a matter of, saving those animals. So we just cut, we're all in cahoots with each other. We just cut fences. So, and that's what a lot of your large ranches do is they just cut the fence so their animals will survive.
That's another thing, making sure that, especially for large animals, that you have some sort of identification on your animal so that you can find them after a disaster, whether they get lost, swept away, something like that. If they survive, you're going to need some sort of ID to
Well,
say, hey, that's my animal. Now, I know depending on the ID, it might not necessarily stay there. I know ear tags
I
definitely
know
can
of
get destroyed.
three different types of identification. It's a tattoo in the ear. It's a brand on the rear quarter of the animal, or that ear tag. Now, if it's a wildfire or anything, those ear tags are going to melt off more than likely.
Mhm.
So if you've got a brand or an ear tag, tattoo in the ear, you can still identify your animals. But there's a lot of ranchers out there that do the ear tags, and some of them do the ear tag and the branding. There are a few that do the all three with the tattoo, but that tattoo is a little expensive, because and it's a little harder to do because you got to strap that daggum cow down in a chute and then try to tattoo it. And if you've ever had a tattoo, they
Mhm.
depends on how you handle a tattoo, and them cows are not going to handle it too well.
Yeah, probably not.
So the best thing to do is ear tags or branding, because you can stick them with that hot brand and boom, they're done and they go on about their business.
And of course, it's a little easier for small animals because cats and dogs, very easy to microchip. And then typically you're going to have a collar on your dog. Again, collar might not stay on, but it's kind of like easy just to look and say, okay, that one has a collar, look at the tag, make sure it has at least a phone number on there that they can call you. Both my cats are microchipped.
Yeah, my dog is, and they'll scan that for that chip, and that chip will bring up all the information, who you are, what's your address, what's your phone number, things like that. What's the animal's name, and it's got all their stuff on it. So
All right. So let's say you have a plan. Everything is in place. You have a checklist. You're like, I'm good. Just hands off. I'm set for the next disaster. But you don't ever practice the plan. What is your mindset in terms of, should you practice your plan routinely? Or, hey, if you got something written down, you're probably fine.
I highly recommend that you practice that plan. Um, you don't have to leave, or if let's put it this way: if you're going to stay, just know where everything's at and have that checklist stuck on the refrigerator, or on the cabinet door somewhere, or in your bathroom. Who cares where it's at, just as long as you know where it's at and you got your checklist. If you're going to leave, take that kit, or backpack and throw it in the car and go to town. You're practicing getting out. On the weekend, go and drive around, and look and find the alternate routes out of town. I grew up in a small rural town, down on the coast of South Texas. We knew all the back roads how to get out of town. So, you know, all these people moving in and everything, all they knew was the main roads. Well, nope, we all knew the back roads, so that's how we got out of town. During Ike, or was it Ike? No, Rita. During Rita, I was in the military in Ingleside, Texas, and they told us to evacuate. So we got in and we left and went to Waco. I had some friends that lived up there that was former military. And I said, hey, can we come to y'all's house, for the storm? He said, come on. So we loaded up and we're doing the back roads. And I had to cross I-10 for about 2 miles. And when I turned off I-10 back onto the back road I needed to get on, I drove probably about 15 miles and I looked in the rearview mirror and I had a line of cars behind me off of I-10. I guess they said, hey, this guy must know where he's going. So they followed me until I turned into a driveway, and they did. They're like they all stopped, and I got out of the truck. I said, "Hey, what do y'all need?" Well, we thought you knew we were going. I said, I know where I'm going. I'm going right here. And they go, well, how do we get out of here? So I got the old paper map out and I showed them because, it wasn't nothing on cell phones in that time. And I showed them how to get out of there and get to where they needed to go to get to Waco. And it was fine after that. But I keep an old handy map in the truck just in case. I mean, because, cell phones don't work everywhere, but it's always good to have some type of map or atlas in your vehicle so you can find the back roads. But just go out and drive around and find out where these roads go. And, you know, you might get lost, but you can find your way out.
Mhm. And I think it's really important to do that in a scenario where there isn't an emergency taking place, because if your first time actually doing your evacuation plan is while there is some serious weather or there's a threat imminent in your area, you are going to be so panicked and stressed, and you might miss a turn. You might not know about an alternate route and you get stuck in traffic,
Yep.
or you might get lost.
And you run out of
Um,
fuel.
mhm,
I always keep one. If we leave, I always have 5 cans of gasoline for my wife's truck extra. And I have 5 gallons or at least 5 cans of diesel. So my cans are all 5 gallon cans. So I got an extra 20 gallons of fuel for my truck, 20 gallons of fuel for my wife's truck. And we put them in the back, strap them down, and whatever else we need to throw in the truck in the back, we do. And throw the animals in there, and we're gone. So,
mhm.
but you always need to have that extra fuel because I've had too many friends. Matter of fact, during Rita, a buddy was headed to Mississippi, and he wound up on the freeway in Houston and never made it to Mississippi because he ran out of fuel and got stuck in traffic. Uh, Nothing was open, so they couldn't get no food, water. Luckily, he had a kit in his car where he had plenty of water, and he had granola bars and candy bars and stuff like that. I think he had some chicken Underwood spread, and he had a loaf of bread with him, so he had stuff to eat and drink. But then you got the problem of where am I going to go to the restaurant? So if you get stuck in traffic, it's just what are you going to do? You got to think about that.
Mhm.
Said there was a gentleman that was driving an 18-wheeler. It was a fuel truck. He just got out of the truck. He had a fuel hose that he could fill up vehicles. And he said, if you got a can, bring it to me and I'll fill it up for you. And that's what he did. And people were able to get out of there, eventually. But, a lot of them were just running out of fuel right there on the freeway because nothing was moving.
Yeah, I know this was a few days after Hurricane Helene had passed through Georgia, but there's essentially no internet signal for my parents, at least. And I know that I was kind of like the guy in the chair trying to find places that were open. And my dad's like, I think I have enough fuel to make it to this area. I just need you to find me a gas station that is open that has fuel. And then I need you to find me a Walmart that is open and is accepting any kind of payment, because he did have cash,
Yeah.
thankfully.
And that's another thing. Make sure you have, when I was teaching the wide area search class at Teeks, we told everybody to have at least $400 in cash. Of course, that's been 6 years ago, and you're gonna need more than $400 now,
Mhm.
but at least a minimum of $400. Uh, that way you can get some fuel, maybe get some extra food if you run out, or you know, a cheap hotel. If you get to some place.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, because I always say like maybe $300 to $500 minimum in cash. And I think they think, oh my God, that's such a large number. But if you need to stay at least one night in a hotel and they can't accept your credit card at the time, you at
Yep.
least have cash so you can say, hey, please, please, please give me a room. I can pay for it. I'm good for it. Because some hotels will not take checks.
No.
They will accept cash sometimes. They will accept credit cards, but if their system's down, the only thing they're gonna accept is cash.
Yeah, I don't know of any hotel that nowadays that would take a check. I don't know of
Mm-mm.
hardly any place except maybe the utility companies that will take a check now. Some grocery stores will, for the older customers, but um, it's usually got, power's out and everything. It's got to be cash.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience? Any final comments, closing remarks?
plan, prepare, and practice. That's all I can tell you. Don't just make a plan or checklist and put all this stuff together and just okay, out of sight, out of mind. You got to practice. Like I said, on the weekends, just that's when the good time to practice. Throw something in the car, some food and drinks and an ice chest or something, and just go driving and get out of the house and find these back roads. Go to Barnes and Noble and get you a atlas. I got one in I keep in my truck. It's from last year. I got it because of this job, because there's places that we go that they just give us a list and say, go here. Well, we don't know where we're going. And if you don't have cell service, you can't bring your maps up. So I got the paper maps and they come in handy. I can tell you, they come in handy a lot. But that's all I got to say for you guys. Just plan, prepare, and practice.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that you took the time out of your busy schedule to sit and talk about the importance of being prepared.
Yes, ma'am. Anytime.
For all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. We are making a slight change to our upload schedule and are looking to upload 2 episodes each month. So feel free to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay up to date as new episodes are released. And with that, we will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.